All right, wow, I finally get to do it. I'm going to talk to you about a classic fragrance today on the channel from the long-standing house of Caron with a long-standing fragrance called Tabac Blond. This is one of 4 tabac or tobacco-focused fragrances from the house of Caron. This is a fragrance that was originally launched in 1919. This version is a reformulation from 2021. And if you've been following my channel within the last couple of years, I've spoken quite a bit about Tabac Exquis, which has become one of my favorite fragrances. Love the smell. And Caron also has Tabac Noir, which is also, I think, a redo of a classic fragrance. I believe Tabac Exquis is one of the most recent ones. And then there's one that's missing here that I'm not going to talk about, which is called Tabac Blanc, which I'm going to have to get my nose on again to see if it's worth adding to my collection. But today, I'm talking about Tabac Blond from the House of Caron. We're going to talk about the Canada Day sale over at Fragrance Buy. And you get a bonus fragrance in today's video as well. I'm digging into the Moncler higher end collection of fragrances, and this is Les Roches Noires, this one right here, a fragrance created by Nathalie Lorson. So curious to learn about these fragrances? Then stick around. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian talking to you about Caron's Tabac Blond. Are you familiar with this fragrance? It's an OG fragrance, original fragrance 1919, created by Ernest Daltroff originally. And Caron is known for Pour un homme de Caron from 1930s. Tabac Blond was from 1919, and I've traveled to France many times, many times, and I used to stop into the Caron boutique, and they had these big jars, vases that they had this perfume filled in, and they would actually fill it into a bottle, and you would walk out with it. So this is a long-standing fragrance, and I feel like, even though it's called Tabac Blond, it's a leather fragrance, but with an ambery effect, and I feel like they're calling it Tabac Blond because of the usage of castoreum. I don't think they're using castoreum here today, the real thing, but castoreum has a bit of a tobacco-y nuance in fragrances. So I think that's why they're highlighting Tabac Blond here. So it's an awesome fragrance that if you are into classic offerings, you're going to want to get your nose on. And then, of course, I'm going to dig into Moncler's Les Roches Noires as well, created by Nathalie Lorson. But before I do all of that, I want to tell you all the details of the Canada Day sale happening over at Fragrance Buy. This is starting from June 27 to July 6. So the core promotions are all stackable, applies to Canada, USA, Europe, and the UK. 10% off site-wide. I have all the links in the info box. Applies to the entire online catalog, including already discounted items. The code is FRAGDAY10. This must be entered at checkout to apply. Extra 5% off select niche fragrances, extra 10% off select Arabian or Arabic fragrances according to the notes. Code for both, extra love, must be entered at checkout. Shipping incentives, Canada and USA only. And then there's also free economy shipping on orders over $99 Canadian, $99 USD. Auto applied at checkout, no code required, fully stackable. Exclusive perks, free samples, 1 per customer for the first 5,000 orders, Canada and USA only. Auto added at checkout. VIP Luxe freebies, free gifts. First 250 orders over 499 Canadian or USD. Auto added to cart if eligible. May include deodorants, hair mists, cosmetic bags, t-shirts, travel sprays, and then so on. So there's also door crashers, limited time extra discount. A curated list of fragrances will receive deep limited time markdowns on top existing deals. So this is probably my 3rd Canada Day sale I've been doing for Fragrance Buy. And even though I've known about Tabac Exquis, I had smelled it at Printemps Boutique in Paris, where Caron has a really nice display if you've ever been there, and I fell in love with it. But when I got the chance to review this for Fragrance Buy, I jumped at it. And I had a 50 milliliter bottle. I went through it because it's such a great fragrance, and I bought a second bottle here, Tabac Exquis. Super awesome fragrance. And then, of course, there's a comparison on the channel of both Tabac Noir and Tabac Exquis. Go catch that video as well. But today, as I said, it's all about Tabac Blond, a vintage classic fragrance that was reformulated in 2021 by the in-house perfumer at that time, Jacques, originally launched by Ernest Daltroff, perfumer at Caron. This features notes of leather, carnation, styrax, cedarwood, ylang-ylang, Turkish rose, Haitian vetiver, cistus labdanum, cloves, galbanum, Indonesian patchouli, and of course, castoreum, which I'm assuming they're not using it here, but this is what this fragrance was known about, to give you that kind of a leathery effect. By the way, I shot a video on Castoreum fragrances, which I mentioned Tabac Blond in. Stay tuned for that video to launch within the next couple of weeks. I know you guys have been asking for that ever since I did the Civet video. But if you haven't gotten your nose on this one, please do. It's got that kind of a vintage classic leather vibe. Something like the fragrance from the house of KNIZE 10. It's a leather fragrance, and I have the golden edition, so it kind of reminds me of that. Maybe a little bit of something like Royal English Leather, the vaulted fragrance from Creed, which is so awesome. And then there's other fragrances that smell kind of similar to that kind of vintage style leather fragrance that originally utilized Castoreum, and now it's kind of synthetically made. But for me, it's very leathery, but also very carnation. So the carnation is acting a bit like cloves, but not necessarily super warm, spicy. It's a floral kind of a spice, which carnations to me do smell like cloves, but in a floral way. But there's other flowers that are coming in here. I think it's definitely one of the best fragrances created, and I don't unfortunately have a vintage bottle to compare this to, but this current formulation is super awesome. If you love vintage leather fragrances or vintage leather style fragrances, definitely worth having in a collection. And originally, I never thought that this really reminded me too much of tobacco. I think it gives you a slight tobacco effect, but if you're comparing it to something like Tabac Exquis, it's a bit more realistic tobacco. Here, it's more leather for me with that kind of slight smokiness, and I think that's where the name comes from, and the fact that they used to use the Castoreum note in it. But super awesome vintage style fragrance. Lots of flowers. The ylang ylang is also pretty prominent here. It's nicely done, nicely blended. And even for a reformulation, I think it's superb and totally worth checking out. I think, again, going back to the tobacco and this being called Tabac Blond, if you're expecting a tobacco fragrance, like something that's very popular like Tobacco Vanille, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get something like Tabac Exquis here. But it's mostly kind of a ambery, warm, spicy, floral leather fragrance. That's divine. Really, really awesome fragrance to wear. Again, I don't have the OG vintage to compare this to, but if you're into the vintage classic style fragrances, this is totally, totally worth getting your nose on. Totally worth having in a collection, especially you like those vintage style leather fragrances. Now, Castoreum was also used in something like CUIR de Russie, which is kind of similar from the same era of the OG Tabac Blond, but I kind of prefer Tabac Blond over CUIR de Russie. CUIR de Russie is very, very smoky charred. In fact, I mentioned it in the Castoreum video. Stay tuned for that. It's a bit difficult to wear CUIR de Russie, even though I like it, but there's a major smoky, charred, burned kind of a leathery effect in CUIR de Russie compared to the more warmer, kind of amberier take on Tabac Blond. So I prefer that over CUIR de Russie, and I totally connected with fragrances like, the ones I mentioned, KNIZE 10 Golden Edition. There's even CUIR FETICHE from the house of MAITRE Parfumeure Gantier, Royal English Leather. If you've ever gotten your nose on the Creed Vaulted fragrance, it's an awesome fragrance. And there were a lot of these kind of leathery fragrances back in the old days that utilize a bit more of a warmer, ambery experience with the leather and, of course, the Castoreum that we're using. So please check this one out. I highly recommend it, especially now that it's on promotion over at the Fragrance Buy sale. But as far as comparing it to Tabac Exquis and Tabac Noir, and remember I said I don't currently own Tabac Blanc, but I'm headed over to Europe. Maybe I'll get a bottle while I'm there. But if you want a realistic gourmand tobacco fragrance, I recommend you try Tabac Exquis. It's so superb. It's chocolatey, it's spicy, and giving me the idea of something like Tobacco Vanille, but rather than having an overdose of vanilla, this is overdosed with chocolate and cacao. So delicious. Nothing like Tabac Blond. They're night and day different. By the way, they're so different. And there is a comparison, as I said, of Tabac Exquis and Tabac Noir on the channel. And Tabac Noir, for me, is more in line with something like Fumery Turk from the house of Serge Lutens, if you have ever gotten your nose on that one. This is a bit more musky and honeyed, so the honey kind of provides that kind of slight funk, that sometimes animalic funk that appears in honeyed fragrances. Still, once again, really delicious, but it doesn't remind me of Tabac Exquis or Tabac Blond, but I think the other way around, maybe Tabac Noir is a bit similar to Tabac Blond, even though it doesn't have the leather, but there's that kind of honeyed ambery thing happening here. So they're different. They're their own unique things with the name Tabac in the name of the fragrance, but acting totally different. Both of them are great. Tabac Noir is also great, but for me, it's all about Tabac Exquis for a tobacco fragrance, vintage style leather, Tabac Blond, and honey tobacco, Tabac Noir. Let me know if you've gotten your nose on Tabac Blanc as well. Add a comment below and what your thoughts are on these three fragrances from the house of Caron. Are you familiar with this house? Do you enjoy their fragrances? I know they've been around forever, as I've mentioned. This is Tabac Blond from 1919. So let's quickly talk a little bit about Moncler's Les Roches Noires as well. So I've done a video on the original first two men's and ladies fragrances from Moncler. I never got the follow-up of those two fragrances. And then they also launched this series of fragrances. But I was actually at a Moncler boutique and they had a scent that was pumping in the room. Sadly, it was not a scent that they sold. It was not a body scent. It was a home scent, which was like very frosted pine-like. I was trying to mention to them, please bottle that for, for people to wear because it smelled great. This to me also is really great to wear for something warm and spicy and ambery, and also with patchouli. It's got patchouli, labdanum, and black pepper. So it gives you this very warm, spicy, ambery effect with a lot of earthy notes, of course, earthy touches. There's woods, and it's kind of smoky and resinous. But basically think about amber because it's the labdanum. Labdanum creates this kind of a smoky, sticky amber kind of an effect. The earthiness of the patchouli, it's a bit simplistic, easy to wear, but also very spicy. There's a lot of black pepper here. So it does remind me a little bit of ZADIG and Voltaire's This Is Him, created by the same perfumer. But this one seems to be a lot beefier, a lot more intense than This Is Him. This Is Him is an eau de toilette concentration, I believe. This one is eau de parfum. But yeah, if you haven't tried this one, check it out. Especially if you like earthy, woody fragrances with an overdose of black pepper. It's very spicy with the black pepper, but you also experience the sticky, resinous qualities of the labdanum in this. And for sure, it's, very earthy, woody. But I like the combination of the pepper here. The pepper with the patchouli gives you kind of an earthy, spicy effect. I think it also accentuates the earthy woodiness and the spiciness of the patchouli that's in here. Makes it a bit sharper because pepper can go that way. But it's quite ambery and it's dense. Yeah, if you're comparing this to something like This Is Him by the house of ZADIG and Voltaire, you'll notice similarities but slight differences as well. First off, it's quite thick and dense here. Very, very intense experience in comparison to the thinness of ZADIG and Voltaire's This Is Him. But also it's a bit different. It's got a lot more amber here, and the patchouli and the labdanum that's in here is quite intense and amplified. But I think it's pretty solid. I want to dig into some of their other fragrances. Let me know if you're familiar with this one. And if you guys don't know Moncler, they do luxury winter wear, but they've gotten into footwear and clothing and things like that as well. But they're mostly known for their ski jackets and things like that. And the brand is under Interparfums, and Interparfums has brands like Van Cleef & Arpels. Who else do they have? I'm drawing a blank. I'll have to do a video on Interparfums brands soon. Let me know if you're curious about that. But yeah, this is my thoughts on Les Roches Noires. This is from the house of Moncler. I think they launched 5 fragrances in this collection, and they come in 2 different sizes. This is 100 ml, and these fragrances are on the Fragrance Buy website currently. And take advantage of the promotion, as I said, that I read to you here. Lots of deals and promotions and good deals. And somebody recently came to me and asked me, do you trust buying from Fragrance Buy? I've actually bought from Fragrance Buy before I started, doing videos for the store. And I still buy fragrances from there. And I ordered my 100 ml from them as well. in addition to buying the Tabac Noir, which I haven't fully reviewed for you guys. But I think now that I've done a Tabac Blonde video for you guys, I'm going to get my hands on Tabac Blanc and maybe do a whole video on the Caron Tabac fragrances, as there's 4. But thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments on these fragrances, do let me know. Add a comment below. Otherwise, please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Please click the bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos. And definitely please thumbs up this video for help with the algorithm. See you guys later. Bye-bye.